maybe the off season, but the 2024 season is just around the corner. Drivers have been testing for the last couple of months, but St. Petersburg is almost here. Hello everyone, my name is Rob Howden, the voice of the USF Pro Championships presented by Continental Tire. And joining us today, a driver who had a ton of success last year. Success he most definitely needed. From Pabst Racing, Simon Sikes, last year's USF 2000 champion. Simon, let's just talk about the off season. Lots of testing, but first and foremost, let's go back to Portland. So I'm sure, obviously in Portland, you're able to celebrate, but there had to be a time after Portland, before you started thinking about 2024, where it's all about kind of taking in the relief, right? There's so many years, all the struggles to be able to get to where you were able to run, to be able to race with Pabst. What was that like the weeks afterwards? Were there some days you just couldn't believe that it actually happened?
Oh, for the most part, I still can't believe it actually happened. It's a dream come true. I never saw myself in this position. It was a dream of mine for forever, but I didn't think it could actually happen, and somehow we pulled it together this year. So a massive wave of relief as soon as the season ended. And then what was nice about that is I got to go to a couple karting races afterwards with you, where it was more relaxing. You just got to sit back, enjoy the scenes of the racetrack without all the pressure.
So one of the things, I think your story is obviously huge, right? It's that perseverance story where, for the most part, what we see in the series is drivers will come in, they'll have the budget to be able to race. That's why they're here, right? They have the full budget. You never had the full budget. It was always you kind of trying to piece something together. Over those years, running with Legacy Autosport, running partial seasons, but still performing. What kept you going through that? Like, what was the dream of? What's the opportunity I may finally get?
I honestly just couldn't let that little kid inside me down. I mean, ever since I could remember, it was race cars, and there's a part of that dream in me where I could go and do something else, but would I ever be as satisfied and as happy as chasing this dream, this goal? I mean, it's incredibly difficult, but the reward at the end of it's more than worth it.
Well, let's go back. You just said as a kid that there was that dream, that little kid inside you. Where did that spark come from? What was the deal? Where did you first get started in racing, and what prompted it? What was the motivation? What was the fire?
I mean, this is all the way back to the earliest memories of mine, back to when I was 2-3 years old. And I was a dangerous child. I was getting into trouble.
That's good.
Crashing little toy drive-arounds and just being a hazard. But we ended up watching racing on Sundays, and I ended up watching the movie Herbie the Love Bug. The old one, not the Lindsay Lohan one, the old school 60s
The original.
One. Yeah, the good one. Yeah. And from that point forward, I told my parents I wanted to be a professional race car driver. And I was 3 years old at the time. They assumed I'd be 16 with a driver's license, to get behind the wheel of a machine. But I came back from the library when I was 4 years old with a book that said I could start go-karting at the age of 5 years old. And my dad and my mom, they held up their end of the deal, and they got me a go-kart for my 5th birthday. Wow. And we just started at our local track, and quickly we were winning there. And so we had to look elsewhere for competition, and that's where we found the national karting scene in the United States. So I grew up in that program, headed up towards the upper echelons of racing, and we all start back down there in karting. And so it was a big group of us racing, and we all go our separate ways eventually, and then we all end up racing each other again back in these series. But
and that's amazing that the way the series says, everybody has their own storyline, right? Some went from different directions, like you said. You started in karting, you eventually come back. You've won championships at the SCCA runoffs. You add this USF 2000 championship. Now, talk about a total reset of Simon Sikes. All of a sudden, you're not that journeyman who's struggling and trying to show what he can do. All of a sudden, you've got that ride with Pabst Racing. How important was that when I heard the news? I was personally super stoked. I'm like, finally, the shot. I'm sure for you, it was amplified 1,000 times.
Oh, more than. I mean, there are so many periods over the last couple of years where I thought I might never touch a race car again. I mean, it was that dire. We failed to complete a couple of seasons. We'd been trying. I'd been in the USF Championships since 2020, but never managed a full season until this year. And by some miracle, we started out with a race's worth of budget. Didn't have anything just other than a hope and a dream to keep racing, and we just built on it week by week, and along came Doug Mockett and some awesome support that allowed us to continue the journey. And for a time there, we were locked in a tight championship battle, and as the season progressed, it started becoming more of a reality, and that was kind of hard to understand from my perspective, having never been in that position before.
Have you had to make a mindset change because of that? You know, again, you're that scrappy guy doing whatever you can, right? All of a sudden you're in a position where you have a car that can win the championship. Well, now you've done that. Now you're a championship winner. Now you got the scholarship colors in the car for 2024, and you jump into the seat of Miles Rowe, who won the Pro 2000 category last year. First off, let's talk about the mindset change before we talk about the car itself. Have you had to shift something?
Absolutely, because in USF 2000, I was the guy who'd done a couple seasons. Whether they were half seasons or not, I'd been there for a couple years, so I came in with experience, with that knowledge, without really, I mean, there was the pressure, but at the end of the day, I trusted myself because I'd done this before. But heading into next year, it's a full reset. I'm a rookie in the field against a lot of experience.
First time in a long time.
Yeah, it's the first time in a really long time. Many of the series I had not been a rookie, but it's definitely new challenges and a lot of talent that I'm going up against.
I like you talked about coming in 2020, right? So really you've had 4 years on and off, not full seasons running the USF 2000 car. Tell me when you jumped into the Pro 2000 car. What was that? What was it like? Because I talk a lot about the fact it's more of everything: horsepower, downforce, braking capability. Your first thoughts of driving the USF Pro 2000 car?
It's exactly what you said. More of everything. And the biggest thing I found amazing were the brakes. I mean, it really stops with the wings on it, and how good those brakes are. You can just lay your foot into the pedal, and it feels so good to jam it and watch the car just go from 160 miles an hour to full stop. And that combined with the extra downforce, we're really carrying some more speed through the corners. That makes it a lot more fun, and it's more challenging as a car to drive, but I'm really enjoying it. It rewards really technical and precise driving.
So again, your success last year in 2023, winning that championship, but it wasn't just you, it was shared, right? That's the first driver championship for Pabst Racing and Augie Pabst. They've won team championships before, but we know the burning desire from Augie to win that. I know you're surrounded by a bunch of amazing people. I had a chance to talk to you guys kind of after the banquet, and you talked a lot about the people that were surrounded you. First, let's ask about what it meant to you to be able to bring that to Augie as well. That's something that nobody will ever take away from you.
No, I mean, that was the biggest moment of my life. I mean, I know Augie has been hunting this 4 times as long as I have.
Yep.
I mean, he's been after this championship forever, and I've always known he's been capable. He's got the equipment, he's got the guys, and it was just about getting it done. And I can't believe that we got the first one. I really still can't. And Miles got his done that weekend as well. So, I mean, it was shocking that we go to the banquet. Almost every trophy went to Pabst Racing. It was just an amazing year for the whole team. I mean, we had Mechanic of the Year, we had Miles with his championship, both team championships, so really couldn't ask anything more out of 2023. I'm just so thrilled for the whole organization.
So you coming up through the ranks, talking about Legacy Autosport, Mike Meyer, everybody, Fred Edwards, all the guys from Metalloy, they were behind you, right? That team was behind you. They've gone on now to build their own USAC Silver Crown car, amazing program, but you step into Pabst. Tell me about the move into that team and the level of that team and the people in that team. It's obviously the culture's a little different.
I mean, I don't have direct experience with IndyCar, but the closest thing I can describe Pabst as is an IndyCar team. I mean, it's just the feel of professionalism, the attention to detail. Nothing's out of place. Everything's perfect. The cars are perfect. The engineering's phenomenal. I mean, there's not a hair out of place, and it's just a great place to be.
So the scholarship's obviously huge in the USF Pro Championships. We know that. That's the key thing that really separates this series from any other series around the world. And for drivers like yourself, there have been drivers that come up. Victor Franzoni was one. Spencer Piggott. These guys. Kyle Kirkwood probably would not have been running an IndyCar had it not been for the scholarship. I know it means a great thing to you. Last year, one of the lines you had last year I thought was so amazing when you said, "If I don't win this championship, I'm looking for another career." You're literally done. Does that continue? Are we still there? Are we building some momentum, some support, or is the scholarship still the thing you need?
I mean, obviously, if I want to have any chance at IndyCar, I need the scholarship next year. I mean, I knew that coming in that it was going to be a long shot, but I needed to win all 3 championships in a row just to have that chance at IndyCar. So that's still the main goal. I think I'm, in maybe a little different position where at this point, after this year, no matter what, I'd like to look for a professional career in racing. But at the end of the day, IndyCar is where my heart is, and that's the goal. But that's going to be the most difficult task of my life. And I think I'm ready for the challenge. It's not going to be easy, but that's the dream.
I think the reality there is, like you said, you won that USF 2000 championship, so you've got yourself to the point where you're with a big team in USF Pro 2000. We've seen drivers, many of them, of course, 4 in a row now that have gone from the Pro Championship to the Pro 2000 Championship to IndyCar. You look at Rinus VeeKay, Kyle Kirkwood, Stingray Robin, now Christian Rasmussen. So if you get to the Pro Championship, you're probably going to go to IndyCar. But a lot of guys have gone in other directions as well. Is that something now you've opened your mind to potentially? Hey, a sports car, a career would be fine with me too.
Absolutely. I mean, regardless, even if I was an IndyCar, I'd still love to do some sports cars.
They all do, right?
They all do. That's kind of the theme now, is you got IndyCar drivers that do IMSA on the side. So obviously, I'd love to do it. The 24 Hours of Daytona, I'd love to compete there. And then my home race, the Petit Le Mans, that's a dream of mine. It's 30 minutes from my house. I grew up going there to watch it, and so to be able to compete in that would be amazing. And I'm not sure if it's going to happen this year. I'd like it for it to, but there's time, and that's definitely a goal of mine.
So we know who Simon Sikes is to a certain extent at the racetrack, right? You're focused, you're driven. Away from the racetrack, what do you like at home? What's a normal week for Simon Sikes? You talked about working with Kart Chaser. I know you've kind of got yourself into that side with all the coverage that they do for karting these days, working as a producer, that kind of thing. What's a normal week like for you?
I feel like every year's been different. This year the theme has been stay at the racetrack. We've seen each other almost every weekend this year between karting and USF Pro Championships, but it's been busy, a lot of travel. You reset from a Pro Championships weekend here, and you've got 2 days at home, and then you're off to another race weekend for karting. And I really like the Kart Chaser, just the whole experience. It's a great group of people. I think we're doing good for the sport. And at the end of the day, it's somewhere I can still be at the racetrack, but without the pressure to perform in every session. So it's a nice contrast to what we're doing here. But the everyday life is go to a race weekend, come home, take that 2-day reset, get what you can done, and then head off to the next one.
Back focusing, of course, on 2024. It's just around the corner, right? We've got St. Petersburg here in just a couple of weeks. You've done well at St. Petersburg, so that's a good thing for you. Are there expectations for the year? I know it's almost championship or bust to a certain extent. I always feel like when you get to this level, when you start getting momentum where you are, you may find some support coming from other areas to give you another opportunity. We know Kirkwood went all the way through, winning all the championships in a row. Rasmussen not quite, right? You can take a year off if you have to. What are your thoughts for this year? What's a good year for you? Is it anything less than the championship?
Good year for me is the championship, obviously. There's no way to be disappointed with running at the front, but if you don't get it done, you don't get it done, and that's the key to going to Indy next, which is the goal for 2025. So it's about winning the championship. Obviously, that's a big ask. We've got a lot of big talent. Even just my 2 teammates are going to be incredibly tough to beat. But I think we'll work together well. It's just an overall stacked field, aiming for the championship 100%, but I know it's not going to be easy.
I'm going to say this, it's interesting. I think that since 2013, which was when Anderson Promotions picked up the Star Mazda program and became Pro Mazda, this is the best field we've ever had, easily. So the bottom line is you're going to be honed at the end of this anyways, whether you got the championship or not. Now, let's think about Indy next. Is it something have you given yourself the opportunity to think about it, or are you kind of like, no, I'm going to hold off. I'm just going to do what I'm doing right now.
A little bit here and there,
So close, right?
It's so close, but so far away.
So far away.
You can almost reach out and touch it, but we're just going to focus on what we're doing right now. Obviously, we want to start getting things in the works for 2025, but the main goal is 2024. That's the full focus is on getting it done and having a good year.
Let's circle back and wrap this thing up with when you were young, when you were coming up there through the karting ranks, like you said, WK Manufacturers Cup, all the racing you did. Was there somebody, as you started getting older, on the USF Pro Championships, which was then the Road to Indy, was there somebody on that program who was kind of an idol for you, or a person you're like, okay, that, I want to be that?
Definitely. From my earliest memories, back when I was about 10 years old, Joseph Newgarden, he was, he had just made the move out of Road to Indy into IndyCar, and he was running with Ed Carpenter Racing. And back when they had a RoboPong, the karting event at Newcastle, I was under the same tent as him. And so that was a really cool experience to be, pitted under the same tent as an IndyCar driver and trying to follow that path. So he was obviously a big inspiration. And then in more recent years, I mean, you got to look at guys like Kyle Kirkwood. That's the big one, obviously, because I feel like he came from a similar position where he didn't have the funding to get all the way there, but he was just so good that he did. He was a phenomenal driver. He's continuing to prove that in IndyCar. So as a more recent example, he's the one I want to follow.
They show you that it can be done.
Yep,
that's
exactly.
The key, right? And that's, like I said before, those four drivers in the past years from USF Pro 2000 who have gone on to be IndyCar drivers now, it's there. All you got to do is win this championship and you're probably going to get there.
Yeah,
how's the pressure?
You just said that, and that was the first time I felt the pressure.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it, but it really is going to be a huge task to get done. I think the best thing is not going to be to think about it. Just take it race by race. Don't think about anything other than each race's individual performance, and let the results speak for themselves.
And if there's one thing you can take away from last year's, you know how to win. That's key.
I think knowing how to win is great, and then knowing when to just finish the race. I think that's also going to be a big focus this year is keeping that consistency up, making sure we sit on the podium every race and just never have those off days. If we're not winning, still being on the podium.
Yeah.
That's what it takes, and that's what I felt like it took to get it done this year. I don't feel like it's going to be any different next year, so the goals remain the same.
Hey, best of luck this year. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
There have been a bunch of fantastic stories through the years in this USF Pro Championships presented by Continental Tire, and Simon Sikes most definitely one, a driver who does not have the funding to make it all the way to IndyCar, but it's a fairy tale story. He got a chance to win last year in 2023. He's a USF 2000 champion. He'll have the scholarship colors here in 2024, and if he can follow in the footsteps of a Renus VK, a Kyle Kirkwood, a Stingray Robb, or Christian Rasmussen, we may see him on the grid one day in the NTT IndyCar Series. Thanks for tuning into this broadcast, folks. My name is Rob Howden. Bye for now.